My name is Roísín Prizeman and I'm from Dublin, and I carry a BRCA1 mutation, which places me at up to an 87% lifetime risk of developing a breast cancer, or up to 65% lifetime risk of developing ovarian cancer. Yes, my mum passed away from cancer. She was only 41, and she had 7 sisters, all of whom had breast or ovarian cancer. And so that was hugely shocking in our family. And that all sort of happened during the 70s, into the 80s. And then, to our horror, the cancer started to appear in the next generation. So I had a number of cousins diagnosed with breast cancer, and my own sister had breast cancer twice. So when my sister was diagnosed for the second time, she went for BRCA testing, and she discovered that she was carrying the BRCA mutation. Yes, so I tested positive for a BRCA1 mutation in 2011. I've never had cancer. I consider myself to be very lucky in that regard. I waited just under a year at that time to have the test. I think at the time, really, the BRCA gene was only discovered in the 90s. So it was relatively new, and the idea of genetic testing was relatively new. There are a lot more people now going forward for testing and suffering much longer waiting times, unfortunately. It was a blood test, yeah. So I had the test at the Centre for Genetics in Crumlin Hospital. And it was just a simple blood test, which is sent away to the UK. They're all sent to the UK, as I understand it. I got the results back, I would say, probably within about 8 weeks. Yeah, yeah.
And when you got the results that you were carrying the gene, obviously that must have been very terrifying.
Yes.
And you sought out some counselling, as if I understand it correctly, right?
Well, when I got the results, the results were given to me by a genetic counsellor at Crumlin, and she talked me through what my risk was, and I was absolutely shocked, because I had really tried to convince myself that I didn't have the gene, even though I knew that obviously I had a 50% chance of having the gene. So I didn't go for counselling at that time. I wasn't offered any counselling at that time. I instead contacted my gynaecologist straight away and organised to have a oophorectomy. But in fact, I had a total hysterectomy at that time. Well, yeah, they explain it really more in a scientific sense, obviously in an accessible scientific sense for a non-science person. And they talk about the risk associated with it, and they will talk about the fact that if you do carry the mutation, then that you can pass it on down. There's no counselling really outside of that in terms of how this impacts on your life in the broader picture and on the life of those around you. That's not there. I did research. I came across a website in the US called Force, Facing Our Risk of Cancer Empowered, and there was a lot of information on that, which was very, very helpful, because they were certainly years ahead of us in terms of having the conversation around genetic testing and having the conversation around hereditary cancers. This was all really fairly new here, and it was new for me for certain. And as I said, I contacted my gynecologist straight away, and he was wonderful. He booked me in for surgery very quickly. I had the surgery in November. And I opted to have the gynecological surgery first because I thought that that would be less traumatic than having the breast surgery. I just emotionally wasn't ready to make a decision to have mastectomy. But what I didn't realise now, with the benefit of hindsight, I realised that actually the gynecological surgery has far-reaching consequences on my quality of life than the breast surgery was ever going to have. I didn't know that. Yeah, I didn't know that at the time. I was put into a very aggressive menopause. I didn't really have anything to help combat that. And there was no conversation around heart and bone health, and that really concerns me now retrospectively, that there was no conversation around that. No, I don't. And I'm very, very concerned about that. Even at a GP level, I've spoken to women who tell me that their GP doesn't fully understand what BRCA is. I don't mean this as a criticism. I personally have a wonderful GP. But we need to educate the GPs around what BRCA is, what a BRCA mutation is, and what the consequences of that are, and the implications. And I certainly think that that's something that needs to be done, from a high level down, in terms of understanding the whole hereditary cancer space, because I don't think there is a full understanding of it.
Absolutely.